Hi everyone, and welcome back to another combined Southern Campaign edition of Ask a Ranger. My name is Ranger Leah. I'm a park ranger at Kings Mountain National Military Park. Thank you for joining me here in my living room, where I'm surrounded by my wooden and glass-fronted bookshelves. It's one of my favorite places to be in my house. Today is Park Prescription Day in National Park Week, where we celebrate the healing power of the outdoors. I hope you were able to get outside today and enjoy some of those benefits. If you're not, you can check out the virtual opportunities to enjoy the outdoors on nps.gov. I'd like to fill your prescription for some engaging history. So I'm joining once again with my fellow rangers of the Southern Campaign of the American Revolution Parks Group to bring you Clash of the Commanders 3, when we will each provide an answer to the question, who is the most underrated Patriot leader in the backcountry? My answer to this question is William Lee Davidson. He was a commander in the North Carolina militia and also an officer in the Continental Army. Now, why do I believe that Davidson is the most underrated leader in the backcountry? I believe that his contributions to the eventual American victory in the Revolution vastly outstrip the level of recognition that he gets. So we're going to take a look at some of his key characteristics that show his leadership and show that he deserves more recognition than he is getting. His first characteristic is that he is recognized as a prominent, experienced leader in his community, both as a civilian and as a military leader. He's born in 1746 in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, but his family moves when he is very young, following the Great Wagon Road from Pennsylvania down into the Carolinas, and they settle at Davidson's Creek in what is now southern Iredell County, North Carolina. Now, when he is 21 years old in 1767, he marries into a prominent family in the area, the Brevard family. John Brevard, the father of the family, was his guardian. John Brevard is also one of the most significant men along the Catawba River there in what is then Rowan County. The Brevards are leaders in their center congregation of Rowan County. John Brevard also becomes one of the members of the Salisbury Committee of Safety, and one of his sons, Dr. Ephraim Brevard, writes the Mecklenburg Resolves of May 1775. So he is putting himself in a place of prominence in the community by marrying into this family. Once North Carolina gets into the revolutionary fervor, Davidson is probably involved in the meetings around Charlotte that end up drafting the Mecklenburg Resolves. But his leadership really shines through in his military service. In 1775, once tensions break out, Davidson is on the front lines recruiting Minutemen in North Carolina to help defend North Carolinians against what they perceive as British tyranny. In December of 1775, he serves as Colonel Griffith Rutherford's adjutant in the Snow Campaign against the Loyalists in upstate South Carolina, where basically any kind of Loyalist sentiment is crushed in that Snow Campaign. In the spring of 1776, when North Carolina forms 4 Continental Army regiments, Davidson is commissioned as a major in the 4th North Carolina Regiment of the Continental Line. He is apparently a pretty popular officer. It was remarked that he was able to keep discipline without disgusting the soldiery. He was charming enough that he was actually sent back into his region to recruit more men to the Continental Army. This regiment takes part in the American victory at Charleston in 1776, but when the Army marches to join George Washington's army up in the Northern Campaign, Davidson gains valuable experience that contributes to that military leadership again in the Northern Campaign. They make it up into the Northern Campaign by 1777, and he participates in the Battle of Germantown, where he receives a promotion to lieutenant colonel in the 5th North Carolina Regiment for his gallantry in action in that battle. He spends that harsh winter at Valley Forge. He is there with the other Continental soldiers, so he is able to gain that valuable military training from Baron von Steuben, and he also forms friendships that will come in handy later on in the Southern campaign with Light Horse Harry Lee and Daniel Morgan. Now, when attention turns to the South again, when the British launch their Southern campaign, he comes back with the North Carolina Continental Line to participate there. He takes a much-deserved furlough, and it's lucky that he did, because the rest of the North Carolina line that goes and participates at the siege of Charleston is either taken prisoner or paroled or killed or wounded. So it's basically wiped out. But William Lee Davidson escapes capture because he has taken that furlough. And this feeds into his second characteristic that shows he deserves more recognition than he is getting. He shows dedication to the cause and a willingness to serve in whatever capacity he can. So when the North Carolina Continental Line is wiped out at Charleston, he is left without a command. But even then, he volunteers his services in the North Carolina militia. He offers himself up for service. And Griffith Rutherford, who is now a brigadier general for the Salisbury district, appoints him second in command for that district, which encompasses the entire western portion of the state. He is wounded in an action at Colson's Mill, which once again helps him avoid capture when the North Carolina Continental Line participates in the disastrous American defeat at Camden. Griffith Rutherford is taken prisoner at Camden. He's captured. And so Davidson steps in as Brigadier General. He is appointed Brigadier General of the Salisbury District in Rutherford's place. And in his service as Brigadier General of the Salisbury District, it feeds into the third characteristic that shows he deserves more recognition than he gets for his contributions to the Revolution. In the late summer and into the fall of 1780, he and his men and other partisan leaders there around Charlotte are a consistent thorn in Cornwallis's side, right around that area, that ends up earning Charlotte a nickname that we'll talk about in a few minutes here. Cornwallis occupies the area, or actually occupies Charlotte in September of 1780. He is determined to crush the rebellion in those parts. But Davidson and other partisan leaders right around Charlotte are not going to let Cornwallis rest. They make sure that partisan bands are constantly active in the countryside around Charlotte. The rebels own the countryside. Even if the British occupy the city, the rebels own the countryside. They're harassing the British. They are attacking the Tories. Any messengers or couriers that are sent out, they better have an escort with them, because lone couriers end up getting bushwhacked in the countryside. Foraging parties are wiped out. It ends up that any kind of expedition out of the city has to have an armed escort. It is that bad for Cornwallis and the British because of Davidson and the other militia leaders in the area constantly harassing them. It's so bad that supplies are scarce. Any outside news from the world outside of Charlotte is scarce because they have such a clamp on the countryside. And Cornwallis is so frustrated by this that he says that being in Charlotte is like sitting naked on a hornet's nest. So Charlotte earns the nickname the Hornet's Nest. After the disastrous defeat of Ferguson at Kings Mountain, Cornwallis is ill at ease in Charlotte, and so he decides he's going to retreat to Winnsboro, South Carolina for a time to rest and to help his men recover from sickness and to refit. But the entire journey to Winnsboro, they are harassed once again by those Patriot partisan bands that include Davidson and his men. After a short time, in January of 1781, Cornwallis decides he's going to resume his invasion of North Carolina. But he wants to avoid Charlotte altogether. He decides he's going to go around Charlotte and ford the Catawba River. There are several fords there. He's going to cross the Catawba River at one of those fords. And Cornwallis's actions feed into the fourth and final characteristic that sets William Lee Davidson apart as the most underrated Patriot leader in the backcountry, and that is the repercussions of Davidson's final actions. When General Nathaniel Greene learns of Cornwallis's movements into North Carolina, he calls upon Davidson to rouse the militia and to delay Cornwallis enough so that the American army can pick a place suited to them to give battle. So Davidson, by the force of his personality, manages to convince his militia, who have been constantly active for the last several months, to come out once again to defend the river crossings along the Catawba. So he stations men at each of the fords on the Catawba River around Charlotte. On the early morning of February 1st, 1781, the British begin crossing at Cowan's Ford. They are almost all the way across by the time the Patriot pickets raise the alarm, so it's too late. But Davidson nonetheless rides anyway at the head of reinforcements to the Patriot troops there at Cowan's Ford. The British have already reached the bank, and William Lee Davidson receives a rifle ball to his chest. He is killed almost immediately. But his men and their actions managed to delay the British enough that Nathaniel Greene wins the race to the Dan River. He manages to keep right ahead of Cornwallis until he crosses the Dan River into Virginia. He's absolutely exhausted Cornwallis. And in March, he picks Guilford Courthouse as the place where he will stop and give battle against Cornwallis. And he gives Cornwallis a long, obstinate, and bloody battle there. That even though Cornwallis is able to claim victory because he takes the field, a British member of Parliament says, "Another such victory will have ruined us." And it's all because of Davidson and his men and the actions at Cowan's Ford that delay Cornwallis enough. So I hope that I've convinced you that William Lee Davidson is the most underrated Patriot leader in the backcountry, but I will leave it to you to weigh our arguments, my arguments and the other arguments of my fellow Rangers in the Southern Campaign group. Ranger William and the Overmountain Victory National Historic Trail will follow up on Sunday. Ranger Roland and Cowpens National Battlefield will be on Monday. And Ranger Adrian and 96 National Historic Site will close us out on Tuesday. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoy the rest of your park prescription day. Get out there and enjoy the outdoors, and we will see you again soon.